Hey there, welcome back to another video. Today, I want to go over with you an offer to purchase contract. I want to go over and highlight some of the important features they're gonna see on the offer to purchase. It's full of standard legal jargon, a lot of which we won't go over, but I want to make sure to highlight some of the very important stuff on there because it's full of standard legal language in there that'll probably put you to sleep while you're reading it. But there's a lot of stuff on there that you need to know when you're filling it out, when you're reading it over, and before you sign to make an offer to purchase in the house. So I want to review it with you and go over it with you and highlight some very important parts of the contract with you, so that when you're ready to put an offer in on a house, you know exactly what you're signing and what goes into an offer to purchase. Earlier, I did the buyer agency agreement, which you need to sign in order to even look at any houses per Wisconsin law now. And if you didn't see that video, I'll link it up here in the cards. So go ahead and hit that link and watch the buyer agency agreement video, just so you know what you have to sign in order to go look at a house. So let's take a look at the offer to purchase here in Wisconsin. So here we have a blank offer to purchase here. The very first line here, obviously here goes the date. So this first line, your agent, or you, if you're doing it yourself, you may be representing yourself. You want to strike out whether or not you're the agent of the buyer, which obviously usually your agent's going to be the agent of the buyer, and you're going to sign that buyer agency agreement. So then your agent will be the agent of the buyer, or if they're going to be the agent of the seller, or the agent of the buyer and the seller, if they're representing both sides. The agent, if they're also representing the seller, if you're going through the seller's agent to buy the house, then they're representing both sides, so the agent of the buyer and the seller. So then everything but this line here will be stricken out. But most common is the agent of the buyer. So everything except for this line will be stricken out. Next, the buyer's name goes here. Then the property address goes here. Then the most important part here, the offer price. This is the price that you're offering for the property. So the offer price goes here, included in the purchase price. So this is in the MLS or on Zillow. This is everything that comes with the house. So like the stove, the refrigerator, the dishwasher, maybe the dining room table may be offered. Maybe there's a hot tub included with the purchase. Maybe there's a shed in the backyard that's included with the purchase price. Everything that's included goes in this line and these lines right here. Anything that's not included in the purchase price goes here in this line. So like the seller's personal property. Maybe there's a Ring doorbell camera that's not included. That'll go here in this line, these lines right here. This is all standard legal language here that you can read through. It just defines the contract. Binding acceptance here. So Wisconsin has binding acceptance. So you put a date on here when you want the seller to respond by. So typically in Wisconsin, unless the seller specifies that they're going to respond by a certain date, we put in there 24 hours. So if we're making an offer today, we'd want to hear back from the seller by tomorrow on whether or not they're going to accept our offer, decline our offer, or send us a counter offer. So usually we put in there tomorrow's date that we'd want to hear back from them. Sometimes the seller wants the weekend. They want to allow showings for the weekend. So they might put like that Monday in the MLS. They'll say we're not responding to offers until that Monday. So then we put buying acceptance for that Monday, or maybe they want 48 hours to get, if it's an estate sale, they need everybody's opinion, everybody's remarks on that. Maybe they need to go through an attorney. So they need, 48 business hours to get everything straightened out. So there's a couple different things that go into this buying acceptance. Have your agent talk to the seller's agent and find out when a good response date is for them. That's usually best practices. That's what I do for my buyers. I talk to the listing agent. I say, when is a good time for the seller to respond by? Is 24 hours enough time? Do they need more time? Can they respond to us by tonight maybe? That's even better for my buyers. Closing. This is the date that you're going to close on. So typically right now we're seeing 30 days, maybe 35 days for closing, but some buyers are able to close faster. If you're a cash buyer, maybe we can put closing quicker. That'll appeal to some sellers. Maybe you need to close longer. Maybe it'll take your loan a little bit longer to close. Maybe the sellers need longer to close. Maybe the sellers are asking for a delayed closing. Maybe they're asking for 45 days to close because they need more time to move out. So you put the closing date on here, on this line right here. Scroll down here, earnest money. Earnest money is something that I put in my buyer walkthrough video. This is how much money you're putting out for earnest money. Earnest money is like your skin in the game. It just shows the seller that you're serious about the process, about buying the house. You're not just going to wake up and say, I'm not going to buy the house for no reason at all. So this is how much earnest money you're going to put down on the house. Most deals, $1,000 or $2,000 in earnest money is okay. Once you get up in the higher value houses, like $400,000 and $500,000 and up houses, you may want to start doing a percentage of the purchase price of the house instead of just doing $1,000 earnest money. If it's a $550,000 house, you might want to do like a 3% earnest money, just to make your offer look a little more serious, a little more strong. It shows the seller that you're an actual serious buyer, that you actually had the funds to close, and that you're actually going to close. This line right here, line 61, it just says who's going to hold the earnest money. Typically, it goes to the listing agent's firm. So if it's a RE/MAX, typically the RE/MAX will hold the earnest money until closing. Then the earnest money will be applied towards your loan, towards your purchase price. But sometimes it's the title company will hold it, an independent third party. They'll hold it and they'll apply it towards your closing costs or towards the purchase price of the home. It just depends on who's going to hold it. Like my firm, they don't hold earnest money, but some firms do. It just depends on the situation. Every situation is different. Time is of the essence. This usually doesn't apply in most situations. This is just if you need something done like really quickly, or something needs to be done in a hurry. In 99% of offers, this will not be filled out. You can just put an NA here or just leave it blank. This does not apply to most offers. Property condition report. So whenever you fill out an offer, whenever you put an offer on a house, you'll have a property condition report with 99% of offers. 99% of houses will have a condition report filled out. If it's a foreclosure or an REO property, a bank-owned property, it may not have a property condition report. Just because banks don't fill out property condition reports, they're exempt from that. So those properties may not have a property condition report. So if it does have a property condition report, you just put in the date that's on the property condition report here in this field right here. And if there's anything that you know that should be on the property condition report that's not on there, you put it in these lines here. That's almost never the case, but if it is, you put it in those lines right here. As we scroll down here through more of the standard legal language of the contracts, these lines right here that are at the top and bottom of every page, this is just where the property address goes in. This will be automatically filled by the computer when you're filling out the contract, or when I'm filling out the contract for you. Now we're getting the testing and contingencies. So I always encourage my buyers to always have an inspection contingency. So this box will be marked here for inspection. So a lot of agents will put in here inspection of the entire premises. It's not necessary. You don't have to write that in there. The contract and the standard legal language already puts in here that the entire premises will be inspected by the inspector. Anything that the home inspector deems necessary needs to be inspected will be inspected. So anything that you need to have inspected separately, like a well or septic system that you're not already doing on a separate addendum, you want to put that in here. So if you're going to have the roof inspected separately, but you're not doing like an addendum A, which we'll cover that in a later video, then you want to put that in these lines right here. We'll cover an addendum A in a later video. This line right here, line 206, this is how many days you have to do the inspection. And also negotiate any repairs, possible repairs for the inspection. You want to put this right here. 15 days is kind of the default here in Wisconsin. So you have 15 days to do the inspection and negotiate any possible repairs. If you want to make your offer a little more serious and look a little more appealing to the seller, maybe make that like 5 or 10 days. 5 days may be a little tight for some inspectors depending on the type of market we're in, but 10 days is probably still doable for most inspectors. It makes the process move along a little bit faster. Most inspectors can get there within 10 days and do the inspection, and you still have plenty of time to negotiate any possible repairs. So the right to cure here, this is a hot topic, especially here in the Kenosha Real Estate market. So the seller shall or shall not have the right to cure. So all this means is that the seller does or does not have the right to fix anything that's wrong in the inspection report. So I automatically leave this as shall, because if you mark shall not, the agents on our market freak out and they will automatically send us an amendment and say, well, my seller wants to fix anything. Now, if you mark this as shall not, it doesn't mean that you, the buyer, aren't going to give the seller an opportunity to fix anything. It just means that you, the buyer, are saying that if there's a problem with the inspection, I want the right to walk away. It's just saying that, if there's a basement problem, I want the right to cancel this contract and walk away from this offer. It's not saying that I'm not going to give you the opportunity to fix a leaky pipe in the bathroom. I want the right to walk away from the house if there's a problem. But because most agents will totally freak out and just won't even look at your offer or just flat out rejected it if you mark this as shall not, I don't even bother with it. I just tell my buyers, if you absolutely don't want the house after the inspection is done, there's other ways to get around it and get yourself out of the offer. They're a little more of a headache, a little more of a hassle, but there are ways to get out of the offer. So I just leave it. I make the other agents happy. We play the game. And then to play the game a little more favorable for my buyers, I just mark this down to like 3 or 5 days instead of leaving it at 10 days, because 10 days is kind of excessive, because then the agent, they have 10 days to respond to you about whether or not they're going to fix anything, and it just drags it on and on and on, and it just becomes more of a hassle. Read this language in here at your own leisure. Read it very carefully. It spells it out very strictly about what the seller can and cannot do about fixing things, and about what you, the buyer, has a right to do and not to do. Radon testing. If you want to have a radon test if the house has a basement, you want to check this box here. And then usually I just leave the 20 days on here, because usually the radon test is going to be done at the time of the inspection. So 20 days is more than enough time usually for the radon test. And again, the rate to cure for the radon test. If you're going to have the radon test, you want to give the seller the right to cure that. If there is radon found in the basement, you want to give the seller the right to put a radon mitigation system in the basement. So I strongly encourage my buyers to leave this, as the seller can fix that. Financing. So if you're financing your deal, you want to check this box. You want to put your loan type in here, whether it's conventional loan, FHA loan, VA loan, USDA, anything like that. The commitment. So when the lender has your loan ready and they say, yes, we're definitely going to give you a loan, usually I put this out to like closing day, so 30 days. And then you put in here how much they're going to give you a loan for. So that's the purchase price minus your down payment, and term of not less than usually 30 years. Your mortgage is usually 30 years, amortized over 30 years. Then this payment is just your principal and interest payment, not including your taxes and insurance costs. And most of the stuff, most people aren't paying any points right now on their mortgage. Points are starting to make a little bit of a comeback. Some people are starting to pay 1 or 2 points on their mortgage, but most people are still paying 0 points on their mortgage. So usually this will be left blank unless the lender specifically tells me that you're paying points on your mortgage. Then these boxes here, you just check whether it's a fixed rate or an adjustable rate mortgage. And then you put in here what the expected rate will be. You know, in today's market right now, rates are right around 7%. So I probably leave it at like 7.3% in case rates fluctuate a little bit. You don't want it to be too low, because if it's too low, then the seller will see it. They'll be like, there's no way they're going to get a 6% mortgage in today's rates. With today's rates, I'm not going to accept this offer. You know, maybe you can get a 6% mortgage with today's rates. I don't know. The seller doesn't know, but we want to give you every opportunity we can to get your offer accepted. So we give you a little bit of wiggle room here with this interest rate here. Seller financing. So if the seller is offering to finance your deal, if you're making the payments directly to the seller, this would be checked here. If you're buying cash, then you would put 7 days here. Appraisal. If you are financing and the bank then needs to do an appraisal, or if you just want an appraisal, you would check this box here, and you would put how many days they have to do the appraisal. Usually I put 20 to 25 days to do the appraisal. Rate to cure, you want to give, that's completely up to the buyer. Do you want to give the seller the right to cure the appraisal? Do you want to give them the right to lower the price down to the appraised price? Or do you want to have the opportunity to walk away from the deal if the house doesn't appraise? Usually I give the seller the right to cure the appraisal if it comes in low, because usually by the time the appraisal comes back, we're pretty far into the deal and nobody wants to put the house back in the market and start over again. Closing on a buyer's property. So if you are buying a house and selling a house at the same time, and you have not sold your house yet, and you have to sell your house in order to buy another property, you would want to check this box here, or me, your agent, would check this box here. We'd put your property address in here, and we put that your property is to close no later than this date. So usually I'll put 30 to 60 days out and tell the seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we plan to have your property sold by, 45 days later. And if it doesn't sell by that date, then our offer is null and void. Maybe we can make another offer at that point if the seller hasn't accepted another offer already. Now the problem with having a home sale contingency is that even if I don't check this bump clause box here for you, the seller will almost always counter back putting a bump clause in here. What the bump clause does is that it gives the seller the right to continue to market the house and to accept another offer that doesn't have a home sale contingency. Now, if they get another offer that does not have a home sale contingency, that are just ready to buy right now and move in 30 days, they will give us notice saying, hey, we got another offer. This offer is ready to go. They're going to close in 30 days. If you can't remove your home sale contingency in the next, this says 72 hours, but we can put it in whatever time frame we want, 24, 48, 12 hours. If you can't remove your home sale contingency in, say, 24 hours, then we're taking this other offer and you guys are bumped. You no longer get the house. Now, if we can't remove our home sale contingency, then we lose the house and we have to start our home search all over again. So this is the problem with having a home sale contingency, is that the sellers can bump us out of contention, and we could possibly lose the house that you may have fallen in love with already. Secondary offer, if you absolutely love the house but it already has an offer on it, you could potentially put yourself in secondary offer position. Secondary offers, they're kind of a thing. I tell my buyers they're kind of a waste of time because a lot of times they just kind of sit there. A lot of sellers, agents kind of forget about them. They don't even tell me that they closed. And I may reach back out to them in a week or two and be like, hey, is our secondary offer still sitting there? And be like, oh, we closed on that, 14 days ago. Oh, well, thanks for letting us know. Or, they'll call us in 10 days and be like, hey, by the way, we're closing. Sorry, I didn't keep you updated. So secondary offers are kind of a waste of time because almost every deal closes. It's very rare that we see It's very rare that we see deals fall apart, although it does happen from time to time. So if you really love the house and it happens to be under contract, we can talk to the seller and talk to them about putting in a secondary offer. Sometimes, they have an offer that's on the table and they just don't feel very good about it. So they're looking for secondary deals. So you never know. It is an option that we could possibly talk about doing. I have had secondary deals go through before where my buyers absolutely love the house. They want to put a secondary offer in on the deal. So we did it. A week, maybe 2 weeks later, I get a call from the listing agent. They're like, hey, our deal fell apart. We're gonna move you up the primary offer. Send me over a notice or amendment, moving you up to secondary offer. Awesome. So we went up to primary offer and 30 days later, we closed. So, it is a good thing. There's more standard legal language here about homeowners association. If you're buying a house in a homeowners association, here's legal language about closing prorations. This is about taxes, how taxes are applied to the house. So how they apply taxes, typically it's this first box that's checked. They prorate the taxes from the current year into the next year. So the seller pays taxes from January 1st of this year into closing date. And then you are responsible for the taxes from the rest of the year, from whenever you close until December 31st. The buyer is responsible for the rest of the taxes. But you get a credit from January 1st to the closing date on your closing statement. Title evidence. So here's standard legal language about title evidence and how title is documented, how title is researched, and how you're given title about the house. Let me scroll down here. This is standard legal language about lease property. We don't do a lot of leases here in Wisconsin and Kenosha and Racine, so you won't be using this too often. More standard legal language. Here's about the buyer's pre-closing walkthrough. So you have the right as a buyer to do a pre-closing walkthrough 3 days before closing. Most people do it the day before closing or the day of closing, an hour or two before closing. You'll walk through the house. You want to make sure that the house is still in generally the same shape as it was when you made the offer. So make sure that the roof isn't leaking. Make sure the foundation isn't crumbling. Make sure there's no new holes in the wall. Make sure the front door isn't missing. Make sure that the pool that was there isn't suddenly gone. Make sure that the stove and refrigerator that are supposed to be there are still there. Just look at them, make sure that they're still the same brands that you remember, that kind of stuff. Occupancy, that just says that you are taking over occupancy on the day of closing. More standard legal language here. And then we get here. So a newer thing here about seller payment of compensation to the buyer. So because now starting in August of 2024, the seller and the buyer are both responsible for their own payment to their own agent. Now in the offer to purchase, we can check this box here. and we ask the seller to contribute, part of their net proceeds from closing towards the buyer agent's firm for my compensation. So whatever my compensation is, whether it's 2%, 2.4%, 3%, whatever it is that we worked out with each other for my compensation or my firm's compensation, we ask the seller to cover that, or at least cover part of it. And whatever the seller doesn't cover, then you, the buyer, are responsible for bringing the rest of it to closing, unless we worked something else out beforehand, before closing. Then we scroll down here. These are just how everything's delivered, how we communicate with the sellers. So the names of the sellers, and then we fax. Again, nobody uses fax except for doctor's offices. Commercial delivery, UPS, FedEx. I could mail stuff to the seller, but I'm not going to. It takes too long. Addresses, I could physically take it to the seller's offices, but nobody does that either. Primarily be emailing stuff to and from the seller's agent. So the seller's agent's email will go in here. My email will go in here. Then any addenda, so like if it's built before 1978, the lead paint addendum will go in here. So the addendum S will go in here, be attached to the offer. If you're doing like addendum A for any other inspections, like you're buying a house out in the county, so you want a well and septic system inspection, the addendum A will also be attached here. My firm's name and my name will go on this line right here. And then the buyers will sign here. And then the sellers, once they accept your offer, will sign here. Then the seller's firm, once they present your offer, if you're a seller watching this, the seller's firm will put their name, the seller's agent will put their name here. They'll put the date and time on which they presented this offer to the seller on these lines right here. And if the seller decides to reject this offer, they'll initial here. They decide to counter the offer, they'll initial here. They'll send it back to the buyer. But if the seller accepts the offer, they'll just sign it here and send it back to the buyer, and then you're under contract. So that's an offer to purchase. It's pretty straightforward. Lots of standard legal language, lots of fields to fill out, lots of things to remember. I know it can be a lot to go through, especially if you're going through it for the first time or maybe your second or third time. But if you don't do it every day like I do, it can be a lot to go through. But that's why you hire professionals like me to help walk you through it. Today's dad joke is, what do you call cattle that don't produce milk? Milk duds. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me. My number is 262-331-1621. I have buyers and sellers reach out to me every single day, asking me questions about how to help them buy and sell houses. I'm happy to help out. I'm happy to help out any way that I possibly can. I hope they have a fantastic rest of the day, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.